Good morning, everybody. No mai haere mai. It's wonderful to have you all here today for our council meeting, 25th of August. You'll note that I've brought a symbol of Daffodil Day, and that we all know we will all be supporting Daffodil Day being a national way that we can raise money for the awareness of cancer research. The daffodil does provide us with a symbol of hope, new life and resilience, and they are the first flowers to bloom after a long winter. And I guess in doing so, I just also wanted to recognise all of the amazing volunteers that work throughout our district to support members of our community that are on their personal cancer journeys. So I felt it was appropriate for us as elected members to acknowledge that this morning. Thank you. I also, before I go through the normal procedure for the meeting, just want to tell you a little bit about an occasion that I was invited to speak at last Saturday night, which was the Hato Honi St John's Honours and Award presentation ceremony. So this is the North Canterbury, and it was hosted this year by the Waimakariri area, so it's across the Hiranui and the Waimakariri. But I just wanted to acknowledge members of our community that received service awards on that night. So we had Mackenzie Leach and Riley Leach. They both received their 5-year certificate, and they've come through the cadet training here at St John's every Tuesday night here in St John's Hall. Kirsten, the older of the two girls, received her 10 years certificate. So these are what young women, probably 15, 17, 18 years of age. I beg your pardon, Kirsten is the mum, and she received her 10 years. So she does the facilitation for the St John's cadets over here. The 15-year first bar was recipients was Robin McKinley. He lives in Harden and works with the Amuri St John, and also Kim Wilkinson, some of you might know, works at the pools up at Hanmer Springs, and they both received their 15 years. We had 2 people from our district that received their second bar, which were 20 years volunteer, and that was to Anne Eade from Cheviot and Margaret Hanson from works out of Amuri. Then we had they had other awards, but the next award that a Hiranui person received was for 45 years, and that was for Emmett Daly from Cheviot, 45 years as a volunteer to the Cheviot St John's. And then there were 2 service medals, gold medals, and that was for 50 years of service, and one of those was from the Hiranui area, and that was awarded to Judith Hoban, who used to live up in Holden, but now lives down here at Waipara. So I just thought as a community that we needed to recognise those volunteers. I mean, there'll be other people that have done volunteers that are in between those bar recipient times, but they all received acknowledgement for their work as a volunteer working for St John across our district, and I think that I wanted to honour them and to recognise their service, because it was a wonderful evening. So just thought I'd share that with you. Thank you. Looking around the room, I think we've got a full turnout, so that's fantastic. So there's no apologies to receive for today. Normal health and safety matters will be attended to should we need to exit, and we know where our assembly point is, and we've all heard that message times and time over. We will begin our meeting today with the affirmation, and I know that you will join with me in thinking about this, that we pledge that we will faithfully and impartially use our skills, wisdom and judgment throughout the discussions and deliberations ahead of us today in order to make responsible and appropriate decisions for the benefit of the Hiranui district at large. We commit individually and as council to the principles of integrity and respect, and to upholding the values that we believe distinguish and enrich our district. Lovely. Thank you. You've all come prepared, councillors, today, and just take a note if there are any conflicts of interest in regard to today's agenda.
Yes. I have conflict of interest over some of the PE documents. My family member is one of the persons applying for the rates rebate.
Okay, we'll have that noted. Thank you, Chris. And you'll step away from the table.
I'll step back from the table for that. Thank you.
Pauline.
Oh, just noting for transparency in regards to 5.1, just my involvement on the Dole Park Working Group by virtue of my council.
Okay, we'll note that, Pauline. Any others? And I will just note for myself, decision item 5.3, the community team funding application. I'm the chair of Together Hiranui, and so I will sit back from the table, and I've asked the deputy to run that paper. So that's great. Thank you. So all those conflicts have been noted. Thank you, Graham. And we do have we're live streamed and we're recording today.
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you. And separately circulated for each business restricted circulation for the public excluded agenda. So councillors, you've received all of that. Rate arrears, Jace, have we received that? No. So is that coming, or is that, will it not be on our agenda today?
Won't be on the agenda today. Apologies.
Yeah. So is that in regard to something that's already in the agenda, and additional information, or so it was a separate paper?
It was going to be a separate, another part of the financial report, and just events of last week sort of overrun my ability to provide that.
That's fine. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. And if there's when that information comes, then we'll have to form this off there. That's fine. Thank you. And we have a couple of leave of absence requests to be made. So thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to request through leave of absence. I've advised myself and the government's team of the expected dates, and so just like to put that. It will be physical absence, but hopefully I'll be able to log in virtually at certain times, and it might be skipped.
That's fine. Thank you. And if I could please also apply for a leave of absence from November 3rd to the 13th, but it only affects one meeting, which is the strategy meeting of council. So if there's no other leave of absence to be requested, come up and move it. Thank you. Mover and a seconder. All in agreement that we approve those leaves of absence, please say aye.
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you. Rightio, councillors, we've got 3 sets of minutes and open agenda to make our way through, and the first one takes us back a month to the 28th of July. We'll just do a quick page turn, and then I'll look for someone to approve those, assuming there's no major changes. So on page 4 and 5. Page 6 and 7, just looking for accuracy, 8 and 9, 10, 11. Thank you, Tom.
Page 10, towards the bottom there, the motion to transfer water services was seconded by Robbie, and Robbie abstained. Is that okay?
That's correct. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, that's entirely appropriate. I mean, anybody can move something simply to move things along, or second something to move things along so that the vote can take place, and how they vote is determined by the fact they move or abstain or anything else.
Yeah, I said before how it happened was an information that came up after I seconded it, which changed my perception of it, but I understand it's okay as it stands.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Robbie. Page 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 17, Page 18 and then page 19. Thank you, Pauline.
Sorry, I wasn't quite quick enough. Page 15.
Oh, sorry, I was probably too quick.
Page 15, 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph down, it said councillor White conveyed a message from a community member, and then later on, councillor White echoed that feedback. I think I conveyed the message, but somebody else echoed the feedback.
Can you remind me what the feedback was about?
It was in regards to the facilitation of the seed and MTFJ.
Maybe I could check the notes.
Just
and
Yeah,
correct
it's clear that it wasn't, both of them weren't me.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Pauline. So, page 15, page 16 and 17. Page 18 and 19. And so with that,
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor, and Councillor Burton did give me a correction on page 6.
so with those potential 2 minor amendments to the minutes, is there someone willing to move that we receive those minutes as a true and accurate record? Thank you, Tom. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Vince. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Aye. Against? Thank you, and we will just do a quick flick through all matters arising. And I'll go back to page 4 and 5, matters arising. Thank you, Vince.
Just the matters arising, the first one, the question I asked about regarding service levels. I still struggle to see how we can even meet the documented service levels if we're lacking in funding, because you know everything is done with money. So I still question that, how we can meet it. I wasn't talking about community expectations. Just talking about the basic.
So I guess what you're highlighting to saying is that, you know, we're in a really tight fiscal time and the expectations are measuring what we spend and what the expectation of our community is will be a challenge for us.
Well,
Is that the theme?
It's meeting the documented service levels. That's what the question I was asking.
Are you satisfied that, you know, you've brought that to our attention? How we manage that is something that we probably need to keep our eyes on as we get, you know, we've just entered into a new financial year, so it's our responsibility to keep an eye on that, to measure the financial investment that's made on behalf of our community. But I mean, I take your point that it is a challenge, and it's probably not just a challenge for this year, it's been a challenge forever. Yeah. Any other comments? Thank you.
I've got a question, but I wonder whether it's going to come up later when we talk about the breach banking there, just in relation to 5.1 5 down the bottom. There's a comment there in relation to until the new water services accedes to the LGFA, council will fund the debt. So my curiosity was whether that there related to us breaching, or whether it was the Your Wave payment brought forward, or not brought forward, made, that resulted in that breach. So do I do that later? Was that
I've got a bit more on
the
liquidity ratio breach.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll talk to that in your report. Yeah,
Thank
okay. So keep an eye on it there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Matters arising, page 6 and 7.
The question I asked again about the accountability to the community of contracted works is not completed, because some of the projects which they are project managing aren't really to do with they're not employed by the council. So how does it work?
Are you, I'm just pulling down to page 7. Is that where you?
I asked how it's accountability back to the community of projects done, which have been handed over to the Haranui water, but actually isn't to do with water. Like now the project manager for our medical centre is working for the Haranui water company. You know, it's starting to get Who is actually accountable? for that?
Okay, so I think the question you're raising is, you know, in that contract back, how do we make sure that that contract back
And
is
how does
actually,
it
where's the
claim
integrity to
accountability?
that? So I'm gonna ask Hamish to give us an understanding, because it is, you're right, the staffing have moved over, but they're contracted back to HDC, and I would have thought that that would remain with us to ensure that deliverability of that project, but I'll get a better understanding.
I think you hit the nail on the head, that accountability sits with this council and with me and my team, just as it does in any situation where we use a contractor to deliver services for the community. The accountability rests with us.
So for Vince's example with the, I'll come to you, Chris. Vince's example with the medical centre, it's been contracted back, that the officer is contracted to HDC, and that we shouldn't see any difference in the outcome in the reporting process.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
if we contract a project
Yeah.
manager from anywhere,
Yeah.
that's that the accountability still rests here.
Happy with that, Vince? All right,
Yeah.
nothing, I saw your hand up as well, but I'll go to Chris and then I'll come to Robbie.
Sure,
Thanks, Chris.
whatever, either either. Thank you,
There you
Mayor.
go.
Yeah, through the chair. With this, what councillor Daly's drafted, noted forward, how is that affecting us financially? Are we paying, I think the term double dip, are we being clipped extra costs over this during this transition? Maybe the CFO might be able to assist us in response to that.
Yeah. So your question is around, how's that?
Is
how's
it
that
costing
funding
us
it?
more
Yeah.
by doing this? I mean, I understand it's transition. I've transitioned myself many times and there is always double ups, so just to the extent of how hard is this hitting us?
No, it won't change from what we were previously doing. The project managers involved will be recording their time involved with the project as they did when they were part of council, and a charge out rate will be applied as we did with prior to the transfer at the same rates, at the same essentially the same rates as we would have had if they were part of council. So there isn't a margin attached to it over and above what we would have applied as council.
Madam Chair, if I may supplement your question, thank you for your answer. So therefore, listening to what you've said, I would understand that the original costs are flat, we haven't had an increase, but there is a marked margin that we are taking a bit of a hit on. Is that understood?
No, that's not correct. What we've always had our project management team, they record their time on any particular projects, and we apply that time based on a charge out rate that is, fixed. That charge out rate will be the same as we move into the company structure. So if a project manager applies 10 hours of his time, at a standard charge out rate of $75, it would be $750 that would be applied to that project. But it would be the same with the if it's project manager coming from the
And Chair, through the quick chair again, another question. So have we increased our administration card chop costs across a yes or no? No.
From last year, yes, there has been an increase in wage costs, but that would be the only reason why there'd be an increase to the charge out rate.
Sorry, I'll reiterate my question a bit more clarity. Is there an administration cost increase?
No, not an administration cost increase.
That's all I need. Thank you.
So what I'm hearing is that technically things haven't changed of how an officer would allocate or charge their time back. What we did last year in that allocation is actually no different. It's just that we've got two bodies running it, and we're so the allocation of ours, the cost of ours has not changed.
Well,
That's
the
it,
only
the
difference
increase.
has
Yeah,
been that wages
Increase,
increase from the
but our process of doing it hasn't changed. Yeah, thank you. Robbie, you had a question.
Just on page 7, around the it's transferring to the particularly Risco and shares would pass to a new entity. I absolutely realise that there's a long way to go on this and a lot of unknowns. But my question is if that entity in effect changes, if the entity of Kaikoura changes, does the whole thing restart, or if the entity becomes a bigger entity with more assets than us, is the potential like almost a corporate takeover, if you like, or is there potential to control it similar how we supply the work to Ashley now, to ring fence it? I'm just sort of trying to crystal ball goes how things like that might happen in the future.
I think as the shareholder council, we would have the control or the decision making, that will be part of that negotiation, because we still are the shareholders to that process. So, I don't know, can you answer it?
Look, it depends on the circumstances, but let's say, for example, that it remains as it is with just Kaikoura and Horonui, so the geographic area of delivering water services remains the same. Then if there are changes at the shareholders through merging or whatever at the shareholder level, well then those shareholders will then hold those shares. So the bigger shareholder entity will hold those shares. And currently there's one Kaikoura share and one Horonui. So if Kaikoura goes ahead and merges with Marlborough, then the new entity up there will hold one share, and we go ahead and go to new entity with one Makariri, then that new entity will hold one share in the organisation.
Through the chairs, what I'm thinking is if that new entity, if theoretically, hypothetically, Marlborough then said, yep, and we're putting our assets into it now, and now you've got that much compared to us.
So that would create a third share in the organisation, so there'd then be 3 shares.
They would, if they merge, do they become one entity though? There's still 2 groups, but they've just grown.
Potentially.
And when would be?
And that's about as far as I want to go with it, because I realise it's an awful long way to go.
And a lot of uncertainty about every pathway, to be fair. Yeah, no, that's cool. Any other matters arising? I'm going to go to page 8 and 9, matters arising, page 10 and 11, 12, 13. 17, 18. Thanks, Chris.
So page 17, just to see if I got through the chair. 4th paragraph down, final sentence. The chief financial officer, he does not have the broken down at this point, but we'll go to the data and see whether there's a systemic issue, etc., etc. The question to Jason, CFO, is have we managed to receive that data regarding that?
No, and that was what I was hoping to provide
As
today.
you mentioned earlier today. Okay. Supplementary, do you see it coming to us in a reasonably close future? Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we'll just, that can just keep an eye on, track through.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no,
Chris.
keep an eye on it.
Okay, matters arising still, final 2 pages of that agenda, page 18 and 19. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to our next set of minutes, which was our 4th of August, so the presentation meeting. So if we can just step through those looking for accuracy, page 20 and 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Can I just ask, and this is probably, I'm looking at, this is an accuracy one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Councillor Davies raised the model operating for a Marama where St John's ambulance staff were based at the medical centre. I think that was you, Chris, wasn't it about Takaka? Yeah, so I think that was, you might have picked it up properly. Yeah, so, and it was Dave referring to that as opposed to Tom, is that correct, Dave? Yeah, okay, so if we just did that. That'd be great, thank you. And then looking for corrections, page 26 and 27. Oh, thanks, Brett.
Yeah, just in addition, I felt should be there, right at the end of that MCERT presentation, I asked a question in relation to how would central government react to ring fencing the assets at this late stage.
What
Right.
page, what page?
I'm essentially saying 27, 28,
27,
because it was near the end of that, well, it was at the end of that MCERT presentation.
Yeah.
But I don't see that noted in there, but it was a question in relation to how would central government react to ring fencing of assets late in this process? And I had an answer from the presenter, but I don't see it noted in the minutes there at all. So it was, yeah, it was within her simplifying local government portion.
You recall you saying,
I mean,
her response was very definitive.
yeah, so it was, I mean, it's all right, it's not, but I felt that I would have preferred it to have been included in there. But it was essentially at the end of that simplifying local government portion of her presentation.
Okay, so maybe,
Yeah, maybe I can go get the notes and check on that.
thank you, thanks.
Thanks very much.
Good on you, Brett, thank you. So 20, Tom?
Yeah, my comments to Claire Mackay on page 21. As part of my written question, I actually asked what were the short and medium, could she give us some outline of some of the short and medium term, some details of the short and medium term works that they were undertaking down there at the River Reserve. Now that was included in my letter of suggested question. And I think that somewhere or another during the conversation that actually got missed out, both the conversation and the minutes. So I think the minutes are correct. But there was a dilemma that actually I'd asked something else in the written question there that doesn't appear here and didn't occur at the meeting. I wonder how can we address that or not?
Yeah.
So these are the minutes of the meeting.
Yeah.
And if it didn't occur at the meeting, then it
Yeah.
won't be recorded here. I suggest that that we formally put the question back to Claire again and seek just a response, email response to it.
Yeah, that's
You
fine.
comfortable with that?
Yes,
So
yeah,
because
absolutely, yeah.
technically this is correct.
Yes,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just that-
accept it.
Yeah.
It was that my letter, the question that I submitted to Graham
Yeah.
to be submitted to Claire Mackay wasn't actually included, and we just missed it.
Okay, so we'll try and get that tidied off for
Yeah,
you
lovely.
and keep these as accurate
Yes, yeah,
presentation.
yeah.
So, thank you, Brett.
Thank you. Through the chair, just while we are on page 21, just the second paragraph, Robbie Burton or Councillor Burton asked a question in relation to significant decisions being made by ECAN that may be, bind in the future. I didn't feel that that question was answered. So if we could answer it in a way that related to the question, I should say. So if we could follow up on that and perhaps get a more definitive answer from Claire, if that's possible.
So is that probably what matters arising maybe as opposed to clarity of the
Sorry, I
minutes?
thought we were meant to, my apologies. Thought we were on
Maybe
that.
that's something that could be pulled through the, so I'll come back to you in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think we've gone through pages, corrected the minutes, page 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Okay, 31. Sorry, I just looked at myself at scribble there, I was just trying to remember what I wrote for, page 32. So have we picked up all the, those minor amendments to that 7 minutes? Yeah, that being the case, someone willing to move that we receive them as a chair, that's very important. Thank you, Tom. One second, thank you, Brett. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Aye. Okay, that's carried. So perhaps if we just go back to those minutes, looking for matters arising, 20 and 21.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I could just draw your attention to paragraph 2. Councillor Brereton asked a question of Claire Mackay in relation to any significant decisions that are being made by ECAN that may bind a future Amalgamated Council. I feel that perhaps that wasn't answered in the way that the question was framed, and I wonder if we can
Follow up on that.
follow up on that question. Thank you.
Maybe, or is it- so-
Yes, I can send those comments through.
Yeah,
there.
and then just email about.
Yes, I mean, I could check my notes for you. I mean,
Yeah.
from the top of my head, I think she said it was a difficult question to answer, and she couldn't give a definitive answer, but I can.
Okay,
Go
maybe
back to
you check the
clarify.
minutes and see what, if there's something, and then look it out to councillors and or see if we get a different response. Yeah, a fuller response, I should say. Robbie?
Yes, I can probably follow that up, and that at the time, I posed a question largely around to the top of the one on the talkbacks and things at the time. I just recognised that it's we perception, so I didn't push the issue on the
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and probably the likelihood, let's talk about is that, you know, they're working through a process as we are working through a process, and that process is somewhat uncertain at this stage, you know, so, but perhaps we'll see what's in the minutes, and then we'll get an action plan from there, Brett. Yeah. Matters arising, Vince.
Just regarding the Hamner Reserve, has your council staff been in contact with the New Zealand Motorhome Association? Because I think they could come to the party to actually help.
I think the reserve in question though is not part of the motorhome. The
I'm
motorhome,
just asking if,
yeah,
and what are the plans for the reserve now with the damage it's had?
yeah, I mean, maybe have we done the discussion at the community board meeting yesterday, you know, but maybe I'll start with you, Dan. What discussions have been hosted?
Oh, Madam Mayor, I wasn't at the Hanmer Community Board meeting yesterday, so I don't know what discussion happened there. But as it stands at the moment, the reserve is fenced off. And we're preventing any access from the public into the pending a decision on which way we go forward.
There's probably a strong desire from the community to, you know, recreate a place of public use, but there's cubic meters of shingle sitting on top of, you know, so it's a bit of an action plan and a toilet that's still partway submerged in the shingle. Thanks.
So, Madam Mayor, the insurance assessor was on site last week with staff. And what we do there, or what they're prepared to fund us doing there. And as I suggested to the Hamner Springs Community Board, if they want to come up with a plan for the reserve, then they need to figure out what they want the reserve to be used for, because that will determine how much money gets spent on it. So they want to reinstate as a freedom camping site. They want to just simply provide access down to the Waiahufa for the launching of boats and kayaks and so forth. Where they want to be a picnic area. There's a whole range of things that have been talked about, but until we have what the goal is, no point doing design work about we can do this, we can do that, we can do the next thing. Let's try and figure out what the goals are, and then we can say, okay, this is what we would suggest in order to achieve that goal, and this is likely what it would cost. So, and it'll be an ongoing conversation that will take some time to work through, I suggest. But I'm really keen to understand what are we trying to achieve here, because I can run around in circles for hours and doing a whole lot of cash, running around in circles without a clear idea of what we're trying to achieve. And it's the Hamner Springs Community Board that will do that work and come up with those goals.
And I think there was a real willingness from the community board perspective to actually have a bit of a brainstorm time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the recreational facilities,
Yeah.
without a shadow of a doubt, they want those back. The freedom camping site may be more of a longer term debate.
And I mean, to your point that you've raised, Vince, and maybe that's something that community board might have a discussion of, but we're talking about two different sites at this stage, but it may well be there is an opportunity there, I don't know. Have you got something else to add?
Just on the loss of the toilet, was it insured?
Yep.
So what do you, so we'll be able to use that funds to rebuild?
Well, I mean, insurance assessor's job is to assess the damage to the toilet block and then say, therefore, as an insurer, this is the damage that needs fixing. So we'll let them do their job. They'll come back to us and say, this is what we think. We disagree, then we'll disagree. And we'll see where we get to.
Work in progress. Yeah, okay. Right, matters arising. Go back page 21, 22, 23, matters arising. 24, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30, and 31. So no more matters arising on those 7 minutes. Thank you, Vince.
On page 27, last paragraph, I just talked about the size of some of the rooms and how we would do future community discussion and annual citizens' decisions, but that sort of doesn't answer the day-to-day things that we all see in our community committees now and everything. How is that going to work out? Because having once a year, it's only like an annual plan like that, really. But you know, what happens to the rest of the year if we start having, if something happens, like even that washout on the toilet block, and how do you work that through with your community? This amalgamation. I'm just trying to get my head around all that.
Yeah, I guess we all understand that we're waiting for a ministerial decision mid to late September, and then some of that design phase will be the next step in the journey. So yeah, I think we need to understand that. I mean, it's not too dissimilar to a discussion that was held at the Hammer Springs Community Board yesterday as well. You know, how does that functionality look, and how do we make the best out of the situation? So the message isn't lost on me anyway.
It worried me, her answer. Yeah. What's the answer? It's a bit like we're not getting any answers about things.
Well, that's probably because of I don't know whether they've got any answers either, to be fair, at this point. So you know, it's a tough place to be, I reckon, at the moment. So Pauline.
Oh yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor, through the chair. Just in response to that, I mean, I think it's high on all of our minds, but I think that'll be something that certainly I'd be looking to in that detailed design process moving forward, according to what the government decides in September or later. Then these are the things that we will really want some detail on in that design.
That's right. And until we get there, we don't know how we don't, you know, so yeah, I know it's impatient. We want to see what the outcome looks like, and we're just not sure. So let's stick together in the meantime and hold on to those things. Radio, have we any other matters arising from that 7 minutes? No, that's great, thank you. So the next set of minutes is the meeting for the 7th. That's the August, and this was our meeting where we were entirely remotely. So I'm going to look through those minutes for accuracy, and we'll just start on page 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 39, 40 and 41. So any matters of accuracy on those 7 minutes? That's 7 minutes. Okay, someone willing to move? Thank you, Pauline. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Fiona. That we received those minutes of the 6th of August as a true and accurate record. All in agreement, please say aye. Aye. As against? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we will do the same and flick through to see if there is any matters arising, but I suspect when we know this matters arising is still a work in progress. So unless someone has got something they would like to question on in regard to matters arising on those 7 minutes, I think everybody understands the pathway that we're on collectively. No, nothing wrong.
More comment. We got a good feedback, people's thoughts around this before we looked at it. And then we've gone through that process, it's done. And I don't know what the other councillors are finding in their areas. But the street's not alive with discussion about it now, it's kind of like, it's pretty resolute, everybody's just, it's not, just seems to be quiet now, everyone just seems to accept that that's where we are.
I think if I can comment, so I'll come back to you. If I can comment, your colleagues around the country, that there was a sense of, we got to the 9th and we did what we needed to do, the 9th of August, and you know, this is the period where everybody's focusing on business as usual. As we await whether we have got a no-go mid to late September, or, I mean, there is certainly, you know, I think we'll all be very mindful of, we're heading into a central government election cycle, and there's a lot of, you know, that collective conversations. I'm not sure whether any of you have heard that, but I haven't heard too much about what's going to happen in this local government space from any political party. So I guess that I'll come back to, we're waiting for the September, making an assumption that we will have something concrete to work on. We're either in or we're out, and then we need to work through what either of those options mean to us. It's probably a little bit of a hiatus when everybody felt they could gather their breath, elected members, but actually senior staff who actually held some of this process as well. Any other comments, folks? Pauline?
Oh, yeah, look, I just wanted to acknowledge the collection of proposals that were sent through for us to have a look at. So thank you for sharing those.
Oh,
Interesting
around the
reading.
country.
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
very
from-
interesting reading. Yeah.
Yes, that's from LGNZ.
Yeah, and I think good for us to be abreast of what other councils are thinking about, particularly in the South Island.
Okie dokie, we'll move on because we can ponder on that for hours. We're still not getting further ahead, and we've got some business to attend to today. Yep, so we will carry on, but thank you for your comments, and we will work this as a team. So just the next few pages, we've got the Known Forward Work Programme on page 44. On page 45, I just would like it, just the Amberley Community Update Rosewood Partial Rezoning Plan Change. I just think that should be it in the tin sheet. It just seemed, I think it just needs to be more clarity around that. There's a meeting for the public. And just if we can go over to page 7, travel to Christchurch and meet with Waimakariri District Council. That meeting did not occur. And then another word correction, brainstorm to advocate for chair. It's got on page the 10th of August. It's child in the district. Thank you. Just a few wee corrections. I didn't obviously read the draft that well. Okay, and then we've got our working group status on page 47. And there's been a little bit of movement there, so maybe Tom or Brett might like to tell us what's happening there.
Well, through the chair, we've now got a meeting scheduled for September. For the date, the date has been set, hasn't it?
We're waiting for confirmation
That to come through, and so we can kick it off.
Good stuff.
I suppose I would add to that. Sure, I hope the councillors are aware, but the demolition on the Rutherford block has actually started yesterday morning. We had the final blessing of the site on Friday, which was really, really nice and small, but personable. And now we move on that 1.5 up to 1.8 million in demolishing that building, and look forward to the site being smartened up and reducing our vandalism bills.
Wonderful. So we look forward to those future updates. So if there's no questions around those 3 papers, is someone willing to move that we accept the Known Forward Work Programme, the Mayor's Diary and the Council Working Group? Thank you, Tom. Do I have a seconder? Fiona, all agree with that, please say aye. Aye. Thanks. Harry, thank you. Fantastic, guys. We've got 3 decision items and Sandra, Judith, fantastic. While Judith's coming to the table, I guess it's probably important to say this has been a long held commitment for the District of Amberley. There's been lots of options suggested and lots of options taken off the table depending on how things have tracked. So I guess this is a step in the right direction, making an assumption that you will understand the paper and what needs to be done to manage that. But I think, you know, it's worthy of an acknowledgement that South Ward councillors, community board and probably previous the community committee have had a lot of input into trying to find a copy, and this is one of those steps in that process. So Judith, thanks for taking us through this reserve management plan's probably a bit technical, so you need to help us, guide us through that, and we'll see where we get to. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report explains the background and the history in detail, and I don't propose to go through that. The South Ward Community Board at its last meeting confirmed the resolution that it made in February. That resolution, while not quite technically correct, the intent is that to recommend to council that the council proceeds with full review of the Grierson Plantation Reserve Management Plan. So that is the decision that is being asked of you. The simplest thing to do, I think, is to look at the diagrams, the attachments. So on page 58, there is the reserve management plan for the Grierson Plantation. It proposes the addition of a bullet point highlighted in yellow to enable the establishment of a community dog park. The next diagram is the picture of the full reserve. And then the next one on page 60 is showing the general area for the dog park, acknowledging that some more work needs to be done on this before we go out for public consultation under the Reserves Act. My understanding is that this is a 2-stage development. The red area is stage 1. There is a proposal, and Councillor White can probably expand on this, but a desire as a second stage to develop an area of the dog park on the other side of the Hall Road to the northeast. And the plan needs to show indicate some where the parking, off-street car parking might be. So if we go, it's pretty short and sweet. We go back to the resolution on page 48. So the recommendation is to finalise the more detailed site plan, which is that last diagram I've just referred to, and then publicly notify a proposal to amend the Grierson Plantation Reserve Management Plan in accordance with section 41. That is under the Reserves Act. The notification submission period is 2 months. The other part of this, which I forgot to mention, is that we're recommending that we do not give public notice of our intention to prepare the reserve management plan given the extensive discussion that there's been with the community about potential sites for a dog park. That's the second resolution.
And I understand that and that, and reading the report. We're able to do that under section 41(5)(a), still not.
Otherwise, if we give public notice of our intention, then we invite feedback. And then we would prepare the amendment, just going to lengthen the process. And in effect, that has been done while we didn't give public notice of our intention. There's a lot of work being done to look at a potential site for a dog park, which is in effect has given effect to the intent of that section of the act.
Yeah, because all of that sort of spade work, whilst it hasn't gone through this gateway, a lot of spade work's done to determine whether sites were appropriate or not, in a collective sense. from the community. Yeah, okay.
That's the
makes
office's view.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think that makes sense to everybody. I think this report was very well set out actually, I thought it had that history because it is lengthy and it's been intense. And I think that actually this report gave that full suite of. Pauline, you've been heavily involved in this. Is there anything more that you would like to add to this?
Yeah, I guess just in regards to the Judith spoke about the potential one side of the Hall Road, the other side. I mean, the greatest desire of the South Ward is obviously to have a dog park, and they're happy with a dog park full stop, but obviously in the future it would be good to have areas that were separated into large dogs and small dogs, and it was felt that potentially, just potentially, that crossing the Hall Road might be a split, although I mean that will come in detail plans later. I'm really pleased to see this in front of council, and you know, the next step is to hopefully go to public notification, and that will allow all of the people who are in you know, the immediate vicinity as well as the greater community to you know, feedback via submission, whether they are in support or in opposition. So I'm really pleased to see this in front of us. I'd be happy to move the recommendations as written if and when discussion.
Yeah, that's great.
Questions have been answered.
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. I'll come back to you on that one, but I'll just check and see if there's any other questions. Chris and then Vince.
Through the chair. My understanding that Greece, and this is down by the beach here, so the design normally means a fairly high fence line around the construction. Have we budgeted roughly what we would be looking at, because it presently sits outside the RMP, and I was just wondering, going forward, do we know roughly what we're going to be looking at for expenditure for this? Through the chair.
The planning budget and
So you're sort of just seek clarification, you're asking, my understanding is $75,000 has been set aside in the 70 in the South Ward Community Board budget. That is budgeted in year 5.
It has been brought forward,
So that
so it
has
is
been-
available
Yeah.
if and when a site is determined.
So that is the budget to in fact deliver this project. If the project, there's some, and I'm a little bit on the peripheral of this, but from what I have heard and know, I understand that and I'm not sure what they're called, but there's a desire for them to raise money also. What's that group called? Sorry.
The Angley Dog Park
So
users group. Yeah, so there is a strong community feel. There's an understanding that there is $70,000 available, but there is also a very strong feeling in the community that when a site is determined, that you know there will be some volunteerism and some support to top up that budget should it need to be.
You know, so I've got supplementary to add to that. So in terms of the budget, the cost of reviewing the reserve management plan that will be met out of the planning policy budget.
That was my next question.
Yeah, and then but there is a potential, depending on the layout, that it may need a resource consent, and that would need to be met by the South Ward Community Board. And that's not a small cost. The issue is likely to be car parking. So there's some more work needed on what is the right parking number and where that might be, bit of debate around where that might be in relation to the Hall Road, on the Hall Road, beside the Hall Road. The complication around why that's the cost of that is it would need, that resource consent would need to be prepared externally and then processed externally, because this is a council project. So council officers can't make a decision on a council project. So yeah, there is some potential cost. We will do everything we can to try and avoid that resource consent.
Through the chair, if we ease up waiting for the new adjustments under the new drafts, we're still waiting to see harshness of those open resource changes in the resource area. I mean, it's 6-1 or 12-6 the other really, but I'm going to ask the question, do you think it's prudent for us to consider holding off a little bit to see where that resource costs might land and might save us some money, or do you think just natural time will put us there anyway with the processes we're going through?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I think the natural process will take us there. I think we need to go through this public engagement and test it formally through this process to see what the feedback is, and then there'll be council will, so that will be formal. People will put in submissions. They'll have an opportunity to come speak to council about their submissions. Those that were here in the last June will remember the full review that we did of the reserve management plan. I think it was about 3 days of hearings. So yeah, it's a very inclusive process. It's not bound by the 10 minutes, 5 minutes. People can come and submit. So we'll get a bit of a flavour about what the community feels about the site. And then we can start making decisions about whether we're going to do any more expenditure or not.
Thank you very much.
That's cool, thanks Chris. Yeah, I'm really comfortable about this process. It gives everybody a chance to, and for us to hear. Vince, I think you had a question.
I was just asking, Sale Yard Place, why was that put on hold? Was reasons not to look forward that.
So there's the South Ward Community Board asked officers to engage with the neighbours, and there wasn't support from joining property owners to the dog park. So the site is just placed on hold, and so therefore Grierson Plantation was chosen as the preferred site.
Because you know it is quite a spot where most of the urban people just walk to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I
Yeah,
think we can have a long discussion around this, but I think that we're engaging in a process. I mean, technically the Sale Yard Drive still sits as a resolution of potential, but it's not the preferred from the community board perspective. It's not the preferred location.
And it required a resource consent, it required a change to the dog control policy. So there was some extra hurdles, I guess, for that site as well.
It's easy. Do you want to add a comment?
Yeah,
I'm happy to do that.
If I could just add to that, that would be great. The view of the dog park working group after talking to dog owners was also that the site, while it provides a site in Amberley, which is the greatest desire, it really isn't of an appropriate size. So if it was developed, it would, you know, there would be a necessity to have to look elsewhere for a larger area. and I know that there has been a lot of talk and there is a desire for something to happen in the Amberley urban area. But the officers and the Southwood Committee and the Southwood Community Board have looked at every possible piece of land that is available and that council owns in Amberley, and there is nothing available. We do not have the funds to purchase anything, so Grierson was proposed actually as part of the reserve management plan submission process, and is at this stage what we believe might be the best option.
Thanks, Pauline. And yeah, I think at a local level, yeah, a lot of exploratory thinking has gone on.
Just on the other reserve, how long is the life of it long term with coastal inundation? That's the question I'm asking, because you're gonna be putting infrastructure,
Exactly.
build a like fence and all this. I'm just asking, does it fit with, you know, what's other things that are happening there?
Mr. CEO might like to answer that one.
The indications we have currently are that the village will remain in place for potentially 30 to 50 years. So that's the sort of time frame that we're expecting, you know, things to unfold over. There's no guarantees in any of this, and we've seen that natural hazards can trigger unexpectedly. Yeah, I can't give a definitive answer, but our current planning framework for the village anticipates at least 30 years there.
Through chair, that'd be the life of the fence, but somewhere on.
Something, is it in a lower area, or is it where the road is?
Adjacent, yeah, it's on, it's adjacent.
I can't see it. It's on this side of the culvert.
Yeah.
So the road is overtopped on the north side of the culvert. So it's still low though, but it does at the moment it doesn't flood or pond there.
So when we
But there is the lagoon, so when the lagoon definitely does fill up. So I mean it's difficult in a big storm, and if it overtops and the lagoon floods, then it is likely to temporarily inundate this area, but it will soon drain away.
So the benefit of people won't have to go looking for a stick to throw to the building. They'll get washed there.
were you on the bus trip when we had a look around? Because it's quite close to where we parked the bus, wasn't it? They got out of the bus. It's just there really to your.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm just asking about suitability. But
I've got questions, I think, coming from Fiona and then Robbie. Fiona?
I think one of the questions was already answered, but I'd just like to add commentary that it has been a long time of searching around the place. I mean, we started down by the Kowai River at one stage. And I agree, it was a good report. When I first read it, I sort of thought something similar in the coastal area. But then I thought, given the lifetime span of a fence, and that actually people need to stop thinking that things are going to happen immediately down at Amberley Beach. That's a long-term plan. So I'm quite happy to support it. I suspect somebody might like to move it.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. We're probably exploring final questions. Robbie?
Yeah, within the management plan amendment you touched on, so we're talking about the south side of the Hall Road at the moment, but you said potentially there was something north. Will that be part of this amendment piece of work now, or I'm just sort of thinking we're not going to have to go again down the track? So that's one part. And is there anything in this, given that Grierson extensions should skirt down behind it, and may or may not fix a parking problem, you know, as far as resource concerned? I understood that there's literally a few square metres, a corner of that reserve may be needed for road reserve. Does that come into this discussion, or can that get addressed if that's needed, can that get addressed as this piece of work, or is that part of a consent or something, a different process?
Okay, so I've heard 3 questions in there.
I like just to get them out there.
Yeah. So, Madam Mayor, first question, so if you look on page 59, there
Yes,
is
yeah,
the
that's
map
right.
of the entire reserve.
Yeah.
And the amendment is to the entire reserve to enable a dog park on any part of that reserve. And so the next plan is just to make it clear what is the first stage, it's the budget that we've got, that the community has got to develop. But the amendment is to the full reserve.
Yes, so is any part of that process addressing the corner,
The
corner?
sliver, that's the third question, yeah, the
Yeah.
slither of road that
Yeah.
that's
Thanks,
changed.
So if you turn to the map on page 60, you'll see adjacent to the reserve is a small strip. I think it's got number 62 or something on it.
Yeah.
And that's a small strip of land. That's a part of the Dock Wildlife Reserve, part of the Wildlife Reserve, not part of the Grierson Avenue Plantation Reserve. The sliver is going to come off the corner of it. It appears that bit was formerly legal road and was closed and became part of the Dock Reserve or the Wildlife Reserve. And so it's just a wee corner of that we're looking to utilise for the purpose of the road. So it doesn't impact on the Grierson Avenue Plantation Reserve at all.
And then your second question was about car parking and whether the road, Grierson Road extension to the golf club, whether that would resolve that. The requirement under the district plan is that car parking be on the site. So where otherwise you need a resource consent. So that's what we're looking at, is trying to provide car parking on the reserve to avoid the need for the resource consent. So the Grierson Road extension doesn't help in that way. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Just noting that there may be the potential to join the title of the new bit of land that comes with the road, with the title of the Grierson Avenue Reserve land, and that would potentially deal with that issue.
We have question number 4.
Sergey?
No, I was only looking around the next steps. Work with the council's property team. I presume that's the working group, work with the council's team. Will there be dollars put around that? I'll presume my thoughts on the site, but there's a lot of work to be done. There's basically a self-sown plantation on sandals at the moment. So will that come with dollars for then the to go to the public notice? The plan, will it be a costed plan that goes out for people's thoughts?
No.
So we know the envelope's 70 grand.
Yeah.
And so the envelope, unless there's fundraising or community engagement and fundraising, whatever, the envelope will be that.
Yeah, so we'll have to match that to this plan that goes out consultation.
So what we're doing here is a planning process to enable a dog park on the site through the planning means. How that then is achieved as a separate process to the amendment to the Reserve Management Act.
And I guess the dollars will only come in once we get through this gateway as well.
Yep.
Really?
Yes, I mean, you through you, Madam Chair, I mean, you need to hear the feedback from the community about the appropriateness of the site. You need to hear that feedback and then decide whether you support the amendment to the Reserve Management Plan or not.
Good work. We
Yeah.
put 4 questions in
out
one. Yeah. Okay, is there any other questions? Because I'm going to go back to Pauline, because she indicated some willingness, looking at the recommendation. Are you willing to do that? Pauline?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, this is the right process to see whether or not we do have support and or opposition or both. So yeah, I'm happy to move the recommendation as written on page 48.
Thanks, Pauline. I'll accept that. That's fantastic. Do you have a seconder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy to second it.
Thank you. So I'm open that up for debate. Anybody willing to speak for or against that motion? Being the case, I will put that motion. All in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? That motion's carried. Thank you. Look forward to the next stage. Thanks very much indeed. And look forward to hearing from the community, because that's kind of what we're enabling really. So thank you, Judith. 2:41. I think what we might do now is break for morning. Break for morning tea, and then we'll come back to our 2 final decision items. So if we take a break now, councillors, and back in the room by 10. Vince, we'll break for morning tea and we'll be back in the room at 10:50. Thank you, everybody. We've got 2 more decision items before we go into our information items. So if you on page 61, we've got the voting system for the 2028 triennial local body elections. So it just shows you how all of these things have got a process and a timeframe that we've got to meet. So Jason, this is, I'm sure everybody's read and understood this, and we have a recommendation in front of us, but perhaps you do might be something there that I haven't highlighted.
I think so, Madam Mayor. Yeah, despite all the simplifying local government, the local electoral act has not changed, so we still need to follow that process. So hence, council needs to make a resolution on its proposed electoral system for the next election, and we have to publish that by the 19th of September. So there's relatively short timeframes. The recommendation is to retain first past the post, but there is options there to do single transferable voting as an option. But there is an additional cost in doing so, and also if we are proposing to change, there is another process which electors may demand a poll, and there is cost related to running a poll. So relatively simple, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jason, for that. It's quite explicit in the report, what the options are or where they are, an advantage or not. But is there any questions? It seems fairly simple in my mind, but there may be some questions here. I think, Steve.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, just through the chair. Just in relation to the potential changes that are upcoming with the unitary authorities and all the rest of it, with the officer recommendation of point 1, and it says to keep that electoral system for the 2028 Hurunui District Council elections, would we, is there any requirement for us to sort of broaden that out and qualify that? Or is that going to meet even if we don't have a Hurunui District Council in the same way today?
I think so. I think coupled with any potential legislative changes relating to the structure of local government, there is a whole lot of consequences of that, and the Local Electoral Act will be one of those. So I dare say if that does occur, these further decisions required after.
I guess we can work with the here and now. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll just reinforce that point, Madam Mayor. We have to work with legislation as it exists, not with the desires of ministers to change things. So we can't, even though change has been foreshadowed, we have to respond to the legislation as it stands. So I know that the minister had said there won't be elections in 2028, but there's no legislation on that basis. And there's a landmark case in New Zealand called Fitzgerald versus Muldoon, where Prime Minister tried to get somebody to not follow the legal process, and the court found that Fitzgerald was bound to follow the legal process, despite the fact that the Prime Minister had foreshadowed changes.
Thank you.
Great. Good question, Steve. Thank you. I've got questions coming from Chris and Robbie.
Chris, thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, the merge with the unification is the way it's directed. Let's just use status quo for a discussion point. If they were to vote for a different system, how would that reflect? Have we been given any indication from central government yet? I probably already know the answer, but I thought I'd ask it just in case.
Again, as I said, this is the here and now. This is what we're working with. Does state.
Sorry to interrupt. I just need to clarify the question. What would dominate was the question. What would dominate the final decision of that, being that if we go, if the merge happens, we've gone FFP, they've gone for proportional MMP, say for arguments for this debate. What would dominate over there? Have we been given any indication? The CE's got his hand up, so I'll address that. Thank you.
No, we've been given no indication.
Thank you. I knew that, but we need to know.
Yeah, and bear in mind that means we're councils up and down the country going through the same deadline, asking these very same questions, and so the detail will need to be played out as, but we need to meet this deadline of the 19th of September, as Jason's talked about. I think, sorry, Robbie's got a question first.
Oh, well, I just wonder if we could clarify the difference between the two systems. But do I understand it that first past the vote is 4 spots, you tick 4 boxes and that's that? And the other one is you rank them 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And we have had single transferable voting when we were ran the election for the DHBs previously. So, but as Naomi points out, there is additional cost involved because it's a larger amount of processing required. And
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, when you read it and understand it, and it makes sense to me to think about whatever's ahead of us to, you know, remain reasonably standard in our thinking, but who knows. Fiona, do you have a question or you're looking to move?
No, I was actually given all the discussion and the understanding that there's so much up in the air, and I certainly wouldn't want to be putting any extra costs on people for something that may not change an outcome. So it seems very sensible to me. I'm happy to move the officer recommendation.
Great, thanks Fiona. Do I have a second? Chris? Well, I've got a whole lot of hands. Yeah, that's right. So we have a mover and a seconder for the officer recommendations on page 61. Open it up for debate. Someone like to speak for or against? Okay, they're busy, ready to vote. All in agreement to that, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. So I'll just exit the chair and ask Fiona to come forward to thanks.
Morning, everybody. So if we, community team funding applications, but Vanessa to speak to that for us. Let's take us through it.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. As part of my role, I also have an area where I look after our community team funding applications and coordinate the process behind that in terms of applying to external funders. So today I've brought a report to you for two separate occasions. Thought it was wise to condense them both into one. So the first one is for our Yes Camp, which is emergency and youth and emergency services. It's held currently on a biennial basis, and Hammer Springs is the location. We've got some great facilities up there that allows all the emergency services to come along. The team do have funding, but with the current sort of climate, you know, a lot of costs have increased. So if we were to use the budget that we have, it would kind of restrict probably numbers, which would be a bit of a disappointment. So we are just looking to diversify a little bit and just look at some other options to try and just boost the coffers so we can have as many young people on this immersive camp as we can. So we are going to make an application, obviously subject to your approval, to the Mainland Foundation, and that is for two costs: transport for minivans for the week, and also for the accommodation costs, because it's we're taking over a large portion of the Hammer Springs Forest Camp. So that's a total of $4,343.25. Each of these external funders do need a formal minuted resolution, hence why I'm coming here today. The other one is for Together Haranui for operational costs, and that is to the Rata Foundation to a total of $40,000. Traditionally, the Together Haranui role has been funded by lotteries, but recently that's gone through quite a considerable amount of change, and they've consolidated both the funding committees and also the way the funds are actually dispersed. Previously, we've been able to have both operational costs and project costs funded by the Lotteries Commission, but in the review, they've actually excluded council for the operational side of things. So that sort of threw a bit of a spanner in the works for us as we're coming to the end of our 2-year current grant. So the conversation has moved, and we've been speaking with our contact at Rata Foundation, and once they understood a little bit more about Together Haranui, they were like, yes, that meets our priorities, we would welcome an application. So they're also the same boat where they do need a minuted resolution endorsing the application. So that's where we've sort of kind of landed, and which has brought me here today just to work through this with you guys.
And this has been done over a number of years, and have you seen the numbers grow to support it from the very early days?
For the Yes Camp?
Yes.
Yes. been around sort of the first sort of intake when I was at Waipara, and it was quite small. I think they may have had about 20 young people last time. They'll be aiming for that again, which is really exciting. And it's really amazing to see the emergency services get behind it as well. And part of the process, the young person actually has to undertake some volunteering with them, I think 3 months, could be wrong on that, but I think it's 3 months as well. So it's fully immersive, and they're from morning to night, and they even go out on a overnight with Landsar as well. So they're thrown into all sorts of scenarios, for use of a better term, that they wouldn't normally come across. We have police, fire, St John's, Landsar, Red Cross, and Alan from Emergency Management Officer. He does some civil defence stuff as well. So.
And it's a great opportunity for young people who might not necessarily have a connection or have had a taste of that type of thing. That and just opens their eyes and some new people on. I've got some questions now. So Chris.
Yeah, through the chair. What's your expectation of numbers for Yes? What you probably have an indication how many youth wish to be attending.
Yeah, through the chair. I'm not actually part of the planning process for that, but I do believe that they will be aiming for around that 20 to 25 as well. And by able to sort of diversify the funding means that we're not likely to ask the young person for any monetary contribution to attend. So it just means that it stays, you know, completely open to anybody of any sort of background to attend.
A supplementary question, which is off towards more for the Together Hurunui and the Rata request. With regards to that, I noticed that, you know, you work with community groups, schools, health centres, NGOs, as well as our own. Any of the NGOs, what's their participation, generally speaking?
Thank you. Through the chair, that is probably a bit of a question for Natalie, the facilitator. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So we asked, are you married?
Yeah.
You've got
So
excellent information.
So
Thank you.
the Hurunui, the steering group has representation. So you talked about NGOs, so Wellbeing North Canterbury is involved. We have a representation from education. We have a representation from the New Zealand Police. We have representation from rural support, and they sit around the steering group, and the steering group would strategically think about what are the goals in relation to what are the need of our community, and then is Natalie's role to facilitate that those programmed actions.
Okay, so they sit in an advisory position.
Well, they're steering group.
Steering
Yeah,
group, sorry, yeah.
so that's the role of those 5 or 6 people. And I mean, as chair, that has been Together Hurunui, I think it was about 2012 or 13 when that group was set up post the Christchurch earthquake, or it was actually at a time when a lot of NGOs were signalling that they had funding to provide services to our communities, but they were never present or they were never obvious. So Together Hurunui was actually set up to ensure that those NGOs, probably from the city, that were funded, actually we wanted them to be present and provide services to our community. So that's kind of the start of it. It kind of changed post-earthquake, but fundamentally that's what the need is there.
Thank you very much. One last question on that is a supplementary question through the chair. NGOs, it's good to know. For the 40,000 that's being applied for, will that just be used mainly for the overtop administration? How would those funds be used going forward?
Through the chair, the 40,000 is for the 20 hours for Natalie's role, so it's solely wages.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's been a while, I've forgotten who else had their hands up. But good questions. Great.
Thank you, through the chair. If I could just ask, do we target a particular age group with this? I can't see, and my apologies if it is in there, but a particular age group.
Sorry, is that for the Yes Camp?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Yes, I believe it's, there has to be a minimum age for some of the services they work with, and I'm 16, and I think up to 24 years of age, because that's considered youth. Yeah, so, but normally it's between the ones that have attended have been sort of that 16 to about 19.
Thank you very much.
Probably, first of all, I want to acknowledge Vanessa's work she does across the district with advice and applications for a number of causes. And I'm quite happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd just like to echo Councillor Bruden's comments there, Vanessa, for the work that you do in regard to this. And also to just generally speak in support of the Yes Camp and the Together Urunui facilitator role. We've been asked to look at support for the funding application. There's no cost to us. There's lots of things we get asked to look at that have significant cost to us. This is something that does not. And yet the roles that they play are really important. The role for the Yes side of things for the young people, the exposure to the emergency services, the level of potential commitment that can lead into our community, and then the work that the Together Urunui do across the region, particularly with Wellness North Canterbury, etc., etc. I think is very viable for us to support, and I'd certainly second Robbie's vote.
Thank you.
If you were asking for that, yes.
Yes, I'd be happy to have that. Is that a question or?
A comment.
Absolutely.
I too can just echo everything that Stevie Bird said, and like to say that, you know, I'm always there and happy to volunteer and be a patient and victim and injured person. Just one tiny little point on item 12 on Together Urunui. Recent changes to lottery funding. And it says into a single fund covering Kaikoura, Canterbury and the Chatham Islands. Shouldn't, Kaikoura is already part of Canterbury.
Don't look at me for an answer on that one. Hamish?
Would it be Canterbury including Kaikoura?
So government department boundaries don't necessarily follow local government boundaries. So for some sectors of central government, Kaikoura is part of the upper South Island. For others, it's part of Canterbury. Technically, Kaikoura is part of Canterbury, but the government boundaries are often different.
Thank you.
Vince?
I'm all for it. I'm just asking a question about the changing of the lottery funding. Is that going to make it harder for communities now to get funding?
Through the chair. Hard to say, but potentially. Previously, there was a separate lottery community, a lottery community facilities, and then lottery environmental and heritage. It's all come under a bigger lottery umbrella, and then it's been sort of reworked. So there's an operational pot, there's a project pot, there's still the facilities pot, and then there's a pot for equipment for disabled persons. They are focusing more on that grassroots, and with the conversation that we had with the team at DIA, they actually had to push us up to the policy team to sort of go to see where councils fit. So while we can't do the operational pot, we're still able to do project costs and the facilities, which is reassuring. I don't know how it's going to land with our community. Because relating to point 12, previously our committee was Kaikoura, so it was Kaikoura, Haranui, and I believe Waimak, so it was a smaller sort of space. Now that we're pushed out into Christchurch, the Greater Canterbury and Chatham Islands, it does make for a tougher competition, so to speak. So I think alongside us as a council, our community groups will probably have a harder time, unfortunately.
I think that's one of the challenges with government funding and charity funding and that type of thing, is as things change. So we've got some great programs that all rely on that type of funding, and we have to be nimble in our way that we adjust to things. But it's still a challenging environment, isn't it? Sorry, Chris, did I see you had your hand up?
I did, I was just speaking on, I just quickly drafted it up to check on the DIA, disassembled 20 committees down to 6, speaking in support of what you're referring to. I support this, by the way. But yeah, I can see the fences you're now challenged with. Yeah.
It's been a bit stressful.
Yes, I can imagine.
Pauline?
Yeah, look, thanks through the chair. Look, I also just want to acknowledge your work and my support for the recommendation. You know, these are both very, very valuable projects. I've been privileged to be a patient at the Yes Camp and to actually see the that immersiveness from the young people when they come in on the Monday to the Friday, how they have developed. And you know, we know how important living in such a spatial district that our emergency services are, and this is a springboard. I would hate to think that we had to charge young people to be going to this, so I'm fully in support. Together here at Horonui, my fingers and toes are just crossed that we can be successful with these applications, because there is so much good that is done with that money.
Any other questions? In that case, I'm happy to put the motion. Although we've got to move in a second, haven't we? So I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Please. Against? Thank you. You've got to seat that, boss.
Such a good springboard.
I looked into this. Prince people are doing it. It was desperate. This time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fiona, for that. So it does take us through to we've got no discussion items today, councillors, but we have got a couple of information items, the financial report, which Jason will take us through, and Graham's Lagoima. But I'll just remind you that we do have Sarah Woodland coming in via Zoom at midday, and that report meets the test for public excluded. So just looking at the time, just to give us a bit of a, yep, no worries. Yeah, so we'll do as we need to do with this report, and then I'll be looking to go into PE at 12 o'clock for Sarah's presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Report on page 70, councillors. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, normally these three parts of the financial report itself, treasury report and the rate of arrears report. As we mentioned before, the rate of arrears report is just not available. There is some, and I will develop some stuff and see it through at the end of the month, so we've got to do a comparison. The financial report is unavailable. This is the first where the issue is just working through the cut-off for the last financial year as a preparation for the annual report. And this being our first year using a new system, there was just a little bit of uncertainty about making sure we do have the correct level of expenditure sitting in the right financial year, either in July or June. So we are receiving some additional assistance from Datacom, just working through that process. But I sort of made the decision quite early on, rather than giving you something that I don't have any confidence in, because there is transactions that bleed between the two financial years. It was easier to say, no, I won't do, well, easy to say, no, I won't do one, but not as easy to impart that information to you, but that is the reason. So I'm very hopeful that we have the cut-off issue resolved pretty quickly, and then we'll be able to provide a financial report for July and August But as a result, this financial report is largely a treasury report. There's a couple of key things we need to discuss. So the dashboard that provided as it normally has, points to note there, our total debt at the end of July was 108.5 million, and with 97.5 being in term loans, 10 with the LGFA, 10 million in short-term loans, and another $1 million drawn from our Westpac facility. As we know, the issue around liquidity, meeting the liquidity ratio is an issue. At the end of July, we had resolved that, so our liquidity at the end of July was just over the minimum of 110%. Sorry, as at 31st of July rather than 30th of June, that should say. And the next one down, the total net debt to total revenue is at 31st of July. Sorry, didn't update that. So the issue around the liquidity breach, I'll talk about further. I just wanted to point out the weighted average cost of funds at the end of June. At the end of July, sorry, was 4.17. So that is up sharply from the 3.94% that we recorded at the end of June. Now, the key reason for that is that we had a very favourable interest rate swap of 3 million that we entered into just when the interest rates were exceptionally low, and we had a swap rate there of 1.44%. So as that interest rate swap matured, the average cost of our funds has actually increased because we didn't have the benefit of that very favourable interest rate swap. We do have a further interest rate swap taken at the same time. It had a swap rate of 1.58%, and that only goes for another year. So once that matures, our advisors there have said, if that swap hadn't matured or come live during that time, the movement in the rate still would have been about 11 basis points, and that's reflecting that increase in the 90-day back bill rate over the last.
Sorry, Jason, I've got a question coming from Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, hi Jason. Again, here we go. Sorry, Paula. A couple of questions I have. We'll start with the forward starts. I notice in your spread on page 78, you've noticed 27,500 less forward start. Are they all in use at this present point in time? Because it said less than. I'm just not confused. I just need clarity.
Yeah, again, we entered into an agreement.
Yeah, I know what they are.
And that is to meet sort of the interest rate risk maturity bands over that period of time. So they're not in play at the moment, but they are still.
They're up the road a bit.
They are down the road, yeah.
Gotcha, right.
And they largely, some of them will just replace existing swaps that we have in place, but it is going out and trying to make sure we create some certainty to our interest rates in the future years.
Secondary supplementary. Are we taking any MTNs on at the moment? Any medium terms? Notes, MTNs, medium term notes. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Well, we take it based on the policy bands that we do have in place. So there will be some shorter term ones and some longer term ones.
So the sort of thing out to 10 years would be MTNs we call.
Okay. Our longest proposed swap is the ends on the 15th of November 2031. And we've got one that's currently in place. At that point. So, and that is all to make sure that we meet those the train tracks.
And one more question, if I may, if you tune me over this. We have presently a $10 million flexible facility that's costing us 35 grand a year just to hold and play. That's the fee for holding it there. How often are we inside that, using that facility?
I've had to use it a couple of times just recently, and that is just purely from a cash flow point of view. I suppose the next discussion is very much the reason why we have a flexible facility and what we need to do in respect to the breach that we reported to the LGFA, that we didn't meet our liquidity ratio at the end of June, as I reported at the last meeting, and I think I reported that I was going to proactively report this to the LGFA. Normally they require us to provide covenant compliance at the end of November when we've completed our annual report, but it was of an issue to report ahead of time, and pages 80, 81 was the response from the LGFA to that. As you can see, we were very, very close to meeting the liquidity ratio, but we did not, and they have acknowledged that we were close, but a breach is a breach, and I take complete responsibility for that. I suppose the key was just making sure that we put things in place to make sure this doesn't occur again. And the LGFA have recommended 3 or 4 recommendations, better monitoring of the outcomes against financial covenants, which we always do to this council, to the council meeting anyway, and further reporting to the Audit and Risk Committee, which we do on a quarterly basis. Ensuring debt is managed in accordance with our treasury management policy. Yes, and the key one was just considering the size of our standby facility, because that is really why we dismissed the requirement. As I've mentioned, and I let the LGFA know immediately, or they were having a meeting, and let them know that we have come back into compliance for July, but these are the things that we are doing to make sure we are compliant.
That bears me to a question, Madam Chair, through the Chair. Does that 10 million being facility in place get tested against our 110% equity, or is it only what we draw down get used?
It is the 110% is based on the available facilities and cash that we hold against the total debt that we pulled down. Now, and the issue has been a standby facility, $10 million with a debt of over $100 million. If we don't have cash in place to create that buffer, we're not going to meet that requirement. So we had delayed doing it on the basis that we would say goodbye to 75 million. So that was the reason why we hadn't actively changed our standby facility, because there was an imminent change afoot. As we know, that hasn't quite happened, and we will be holding the debt on behalf of the Kaikoura Huranui water supply, water services for some time, until they can accede to the LGFA. That's not an issue from our, as reported, an issue from our debt to revenue ratios, because that debt that is held on behalf of the company is considered a financial asset and then comes off at the net debt, but it doesn't apply to the liquidity. So we need to have greater facilities available to meet that 110% liquidity ratio. So the key was either increase our existing facility with Westpac, and as you rightly state, that costs us 35 basis points a year. So for $10 million, that costs us 35,000 just to have that facility in place. That's not drawing it down.
But it doesn't encumber us over our equity. Over our equity on the 110, it doesn't encumber there, it doesn't test it.
No, it's just, it only becomes part of the debt if we do pull it down, and it is there for emergency events and not emergency events.
One last question I have, Madam Chair, if you tolerate my persistence. Are we drafting any commercial paper at the moment in our loan?
The $10 million that we pulled down from the LGFA as short-term debt is considered commercial paper because it is due for, it is within the 12 months. Sorry, Steve, if you.
When you finish, sorry.
Well, yeah, it was just trying to working on the next thing around the key thing is that we do need to extend or increase our standby facilities. The options have been either discussing it with Westpac or the LGFA. Very good friends at the LGFA have got other facilities available, and they've developed them specifically for this purpose to ensure that councils continue to meet the liquidity.
Sure. Thank you. Well, that leads me to something I wasn't going to bring up just yet, but it does draft me towards that. If you again tolerate my persistence, you will check.
Of course I will, Chris.
I appreciate that very much. The CAF. Sorry, buddy, that's next in line. You haven't really briefed us on the CAF, but is that where we're going to look for that extra liquidity? That right? So that's our future for us, is to look at the CAF relationship.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And I suppose the key reasons, the absolute key reason from my point of view is the line fee, the commitment fee is 20 basis points rather than the 35 basis points. I have arranged at the end of time that does need a resolution of council to enter into that facility, but an agreement that provides us $5 million facility under the cash advance facility, and that will essentially cost us $10,000 a year to have that in place and provide some assurances that we will always meet that liquidity ratio.
Thank you.
I'll just ask a question. I think I've got Steve, I've got Brett, and I've got Robbie coming along. But the recommendation doesn't need to stipulate what the facility is going to be, like the $5 million that you just talked about. So just entering into, is that like that's sufficient, or do we need to put some guardrails on that?
I'm happy to put some guardrails in there that enter into a cash advance facility agreement for it's actually between $0 and $5 million.
Right.
From the local government.
Yeah, okay, so maybe just the councillors just ponder on that for a moment, and we'll explore these questions, and then we'll see if we can get a resolution and move on. Steve, thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. Thanks, Jason. I'm just for my own clarification here and understanding. Back in May, I believe you presented to us on the KHWS financing presentation. And part of that was that the accession process will normally take 3 to 4 months. Now, I understand that we had a kickback for the KHWS initially, but the point on page 71 says that the second to last bullet point says with the knowledge that the accession to the LGFA by KHWS will most likely not be achieved during the 2026 calendar year. if it's only 3 to 4 months back in May, we've had one knockback, why is it not able to be achieved during this calendar year?
That is purely a gut feeling, given that there is still a significant amount of work need to do some forecasting of CapEx over the next 10 years. So there is there is just some further work to do. I know the board have been talking to members of the board of the LGFA to find a solution, but we're not quite at the stage that we've tapped all the boxes and then we can work down the accession process. And until we get to that point, I can't give you any guarantees that it will be done before the side of Christmas. The intention is to,
So the intention is to still try and achieve that, but you're hedging your bets that we may not.
The cash advance facility, it does go for 3 years, but we can extend it or reduce it if circumstances change. So if we only need it $1 million, we can tailor it to that if the LGFA, if the does get second to the LGFA and the requirement for council to hold that debt on their behalf is no longer there, we can make changes down the track.
That was reviewing the decision that we're making today. Gets set up and gets a facility in their own right, that will negate or reduce the impact of what we're providing as a cash flow, for lack of a better word, in the interim.
Yes, yeah, and we've always got the ability to renegotiate with Westpac as well. So if there is no longer a need for a $10 million facility from Westpac, we will shorten that up as soon as we can.
And that will form this process, I guess, what we're engaging or entering into will form part of your monthly report to council as to how that movement is shaping up or progressing.
Yes.
So that I think from a governance perspective, it's good to keep line of sight on that to understand that we must get to a point where we're narrowing the financial implications of being holding the KWHS in that interim position.
Yes, and I think at the end of September, I'll be able to take my interim CFO's hat from and throw it at the new bloke coming in. So there'll still be quite a lot of liaison between us to continue.
Yes. So I think from a governance perspective, it's important to follow up on the question that you've raised, Steve, is that, there is monthly monitoring of the progression, and I guess it's wide at the moment, but it should narrow down as time goes on, whatever that time frame is. I think I had questions coming from Rita and then Robbie. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, if I could just take us back to page 80, that LGFA it's quite clear from their point of view that they deem the breach serious because it's a breach. I understand your explanation, it's fleeting in the context of it. But we're only the second council to that. Are we expecting or anticipating any media interest because of the fascination of Council Prudence and not necessarily the detail, but they would love the headline?
I don't believe so, but
could I just ask you, does this information is public?
Yeah,
so that's the reason I asked.
It's an open agenda.
Yeah, but no, so the breach is public, so that's why I asked, because I would anticipate media interest, and if we are we ready for any questions that may come?
I'm ready for it. We've resolved the issue and yeah, working towards getting a process where it doesn't occur again. I mean, I reported the breach at the last meeting, the last financial report in an open meeting, as spoke about in an open meeting with the Audit and Risk Committee, and certainly at the end of November, when the covenant compliance is put together by the LGFA, they have that quite open as well. It is provided to all councils to make sure that all other councils, shareholding councils, guaranteeing councils are aware of the situations from other councils.
I just read through, I mean, I understand the context, I understand the fleeting nature of it. But I was just concerned for the safety.
So I guess if there was any interest at all, I support what Jason's talked about. This was presented, 100% at the last Treasury report, and there will be a suitably phrased response to that case, and that's what we've got in front of us.
Thank you.
Robbie, question?
Yes, just on page 78, swap number 52.
I think I've mentioned a few times, if I had the crystal ball around COVID when the underlying interest rates were about 0.25%, I would have taken a lot of debt for a long time and entered into a whole lot of interest rate swaps for a long time at that point, but that was a point in time, and unfortunately they mature as the previous one did, and it has an effect on their underlying interest rates.
Need a few more of those.
Madam Mayor, I'll just make a point here about if we were traders, we chase the market on the stuff. If we're not, all we're trying to do is flatten the spikes by taking the current swaps. So that's all we're trying to do, flatten the spikes. We can bemoan with the benefit of hindsight, we didn't take more in the past, but that's not our job. We're not in that business. All we're trying to do is make sure that we don't get hit with interest price shocks. And we have sat around this table before and said, oh, the market's falling, we'll breach our policy, etc., etc., etc. And of course, when the market goes up again, no one wants to know about that. So, you know, we've got guardrails, we work in between those guardrails, and that's what we do. The market provides, the market takes away.
That's true. And I guess, you know, we're all sitting here with our communities in mind, and that is the role that we take as a serious commitment to ensure that we are using the best use of the money available and continue to provide the assets of the operational context for our members of our community as well. I mean, that's kind of the context that we're managing this in. Robbie, maybe.
Yes, just bear in mind the next page over on 79, that chart there, after a pretty good couple of years of things dropping and then flattening, it's an upturn. There's a feeling that that's, you know, we've had the best of that part of the cycle.
Yeah, and as you see, 90-day bank bill rate has been gradually increasing, and then that will follow through with that's followed through with the Reserve Bank increasing the official cash rate, and commentators suggesting that another increase before the end of the calendar year. So, in the report here at the end of July, the 90-day bank bill rate had risen to 2.94%. So that has increased quite markedly. it's a great column, and it's coming down, but then it's sort of last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. For me, I guess there's a couple of things in here that it's worthwhile noting, you know, that regular performance reporting, Jason, to the Audit and Risk Committee, particularly in regard to the financial LGFA. I mean, that is something that is happening, but, you know, in the interest of this, you know, will continue to happen. And and these discussions will come through on a monthly reporting basis as well. So whilst this is testing times, it's also, I think we've got the process in place to ensure that we've got the right reliable mechanism to continue to have oversight on this. So, everybody comfortable with that? Is that the question?
Just a question I've got. What were the reasons for local financing that we take on Kaikoura?
There are certain covenants that the company need to meet over a 5-year period. So the principal one is what they call the free funds from operation over the level of debt, and that needs to be at 10% after 5 years. So, and even when we were putting together the water service delivery plan, we did not meet that, and we specifically stated that we needed an extension to the transition period. They gave us, you know, the default was 5 years, and in our water service delivery plan, we stated we needed 7 years to meet that. And although there was no guarantees given by the LGFA, because it is a board, LGFA board decision, the water service delivery plan was adopted. And then subsequently we put our forward budgets company has put forward budgets to the LGFA, and with them not meeting those FFO to debt ratios within the 5 years, and they've just been returned or set on the basis we cannot recommend to the LGFA board to receive the company at this stage. And so we knew that was going to be the case, but we needed to test it with the LGFA, because we were hoping that there was a possibility of a bespoke transition period, and that opportunity just isn't here at the moment. So yeah, so and as the company's got 3 options there to meet that FFO to debt ratio. One is increased revenue, and that is increasing rates. One is reducing operating expenditure, and the expenditure is operating expenditure is relatively need to meet that. The other component was reducing debt, and there are certain requirements we need to meet. So, debt is largely a result of capital expenditure, and so there is a need to reduce the debt, need to reduce the level of capital expenditure, and that is not as easy as it sounds, because there are certain part of the capital program is required to meet the standards required by Te Mata Arawa. So there's a lot of balancing going on. The LGFA will always, the easiest thing to do is to increase the revenue. But they are our consumers, they are our ratepayers, so very, very mindful of that. But that is their default position, and they continually provide the example of Te Aki Wai in Wellington about the large amount of increases required for those ratepayers. On top of a significantly large amount of costs relating to water in the first place.
Just off the top, sorry, just through the chair, just off the top of your head, any idea of what percentage increase would be needed to meet that 5 year?
Mayor, I think we're running into
Yeah.
speculating
Correct.
on KHWS's business, and I don't think it's helpful to do
Yeah.
so. I think if you want to have a discussion with KHWS's directors, then that would be the appropriate. I don't think asking us to speculate on that is helpful.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and just, Graham, can you remind me, we've got the board or the chair, something in September, October?
I think it's beginning of November, because
November.
I think we needed a period of time.
Yeah.
First quarter. Notice to come through.
And that will then become on a regular cycle where you will be able to ask the company those questions, so we need to stay in our lane. Yeah. Thank you. Fiona, question?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and I think it's actually been quite a good conversation for us all to understand the various different moving parts of this, and it was always going to be a wee bit complex. We recognised that going in, because we, in our own program, we'd planned to be where we needed to be in year 10, and so we needed that extra time, and KWS is still looking to work towards that time. It's just whether the government department will agree with us. So, but I think as far as this report goes, and the breach, I think we proactively managed it. As soon as it was noticed, it was passed on, it was discussed at the Audit and Risk Committee, all the steps had been taken that were requested, and I'm happy to move the recommendation. If we're going, did we say we were going to add the 0 to 5 million, put a number on it?
A facility of up to 5 million.
Of up to 5 million, I'm happy to move it with that wording. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. We've all had good opportunity for question time, and I have a mover. Do I have a seconder for that?
I actually have another question. Is there an opportunity, because it sounds like the financial side of the Kaikoura Haranui Water are going to have problems with finance without, if the only option they've got is to put their costs or their charges through the roof, and our ratepayers are the same people. Do we carry on financing them? Just asking.
Yeah, and that is, certainly an option. I mean, the intention was that they secure their own debt, so it takes it off the council's books, but it has been thought about that. Well, forget about the LQFA. Some risks around liquidity is one, but it wasn't the obvious intention down the track.
Madam Mayor, we've talked about the potential to increase revenue charges is one way that one lever that KHWS has to pull to meet the requirements. I don't think we've talked about the quantum of that. I don't think we can classify it as putting charges through the roof. I think that's sending the wrong message. We haven't had any discussion about the quantum of increase required, anything like that. And I think it'd be better to wait and hear directly from KHWS as they work through these issues, what those things might look like.
Agree. We have a mover. Is this and we're coming back to question time?
This is actually a question or request, Madam Chair. If that beeth, then would it not be prudent for us to request KHWS to forward their schedule to see their shareholder under the Act a little bit earlier than November? Obviously, there's pressing questions around this room, and it would be prudent for them to perhaps find time for 30 minutes to 45 minutes to address the questions that are starting to press in the room with the as their shareholder and under the shareholders agreement, I might add too.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I think
Yeah,
would be a good opportunity to do that. I think we just have to allow KHWS to develop their 10-year plan, road pricing, etc., so they've got that fully developed before they come and talk to us.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to pick up on that and, but I'd quite like to get this recommendation sorted first. And then we'll get an outcome from that, because I was thinking that through in my own mind as well, Chris, so, we do have, did we get a second?
Yep.
Robbie did, Robbie, I beg your pardon, sorry, Robbie.
You were nervous.
Anybody wish to speak for or against? Okay, that being the case, I'll put that motion, all in agreement with that, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, that motion's carried, thank you. So just on the back of that discussion, could we leave it with you to see if it's possible to bring forward an opportunity for Carl and or the board to be not sure what the composition of that, see if we can bring it forward from that date in November.
Madam Chair, could I also request that our candidate, Mr. Strong, would be available as well? Some people in this room have yet to meet him.
Yeah, we'll do
Thank
it,
you.
make it happen, yeah. So thanks, Graham. So we have got, thank you, sorry, Jason, thank you. I guess every month we almost say thank you for the additional work that you're doing for us. So we do recognise that, and you know, I know these are pretty meaty discussions that you're having on our behalf. Thank you. Graham, we have the Lagoima request in front of us, councillors, on page 82 in your paper. There's got a number this month, so that's 13 in front of us. So anything you want to add as far as that goes before you open it up for questions?
Sorry, just organising. We've got
Yeah, I know, too
Sarah
many
joining
jobs.
as well.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything in particular I want to mention. Just that I remember that after the last meeting, I said I was going to forward one on to councillors, which I forgot to do, so I'll have that. But otherwise, I'm just happy to take questions.
Yeah, that's great. So let's have are there any questions in regard to these?
Oh, Madam Chair, sorry to be constant there. I'm like a squeaky wheel today. I do apologise. Curiosity, if nothing more, please, through the chair to you, Graham. Number 13, Labour's Leaders Office, costs incurred with Head Start process. Do we have any heads up on that request? No pun intended, yeah.
Madam Mayor, yes, it's gone to all the councils around the country, and it's as it's saying, it's asking for all the additional costs that councils incurred in developing the start process proposal. So yes, we've started gathering up the information around our surveys and part of the response will be the additional meetings, council meetings, that cost is pretty much absorbed, so it will just be any additional expense.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Any other questions in regard to 13? Thank you, Robbie.
Oh, just very quickly, the company is that in regards to a road that we've already traversed, or is this a new issue somewhere else in the district?
Madam Mayor, this is a completely different one. It came from North Island. I mean, it was just a general one, and in fact, it was a very quick response from the roading team because we didn't have a lot to apply to the criteria.
Happy to move that the information be received.
Okay, so we have a mover. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Pauline. All of agreement that we received this information, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. That takes us through our open agenda, and I think we've got Sarah online already. But first and foremost, can I please ask that we move into public excluded. Then when we come back after lunch, we'll continue with our public excluded agenda. You will have read all of this to meet the test of PE and Sarah's report. Will be in that manner as well. So someone willing to move us into PE? Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Chris. All in agreement, please say aye. Aye. Those against, that motion is carried. Thank you. So just give Graham a minute to get
Hi, Graham.
Sorry, Sarah, just a moment.